Will Jalen Hurts throw for over 3,200 yards? Will Saquon Barkley run for over 1,450 yards? Will you place over-unders this year? Before you do, listen to what Fran Duffy has to say next on the PHLY Eagles Show. Welcome to a Monday edition of the PHLY Eagles Show. I'm Zach Berman here with Fran Duffy. We are brought to you by TrueMark, by TrueMark Financial Credit Union. And this is a fun day. It's the last day of June, but we're football season's inching closer and closer and closer. We're about 3+ weeks away from training camp. We get Fran Duffy back. We have a piece up on allphly.com on the college quarterbacks. First off, Fran, welcome back.
Thank you, man. Yeah, it was a nice week off. The family and I, we went down to Disney World for the week. So it was a fun, hectic, crazy, but memorable week for sure.
The concept today, or the conceit, as Bo would say, is over-unders. You all place them. You all look at them. You want to know, it's the statistical over-unders. We'll wait for the win total over-unders for across the NFL when the season approaches. But you can go on to our friends at Bet365 now and place these bets. But before you do, you should listen to what we have to say. So we're going through the statistical measures from Bet365, whether it's Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, A.J. Brown, DeVonta Smith, Dallas Goedert. And then we have some homemade metrics as well that we will look at that include some defensive players and Jahan Dotson. So that's going to be fun. But before we do, we should also catch up on what's going on around the NFL. And this is going to be the big deal brought to you by Cherry Hill Jeep. So the big deal today happened in the NFL between the Miami Dolphins and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Jalen Ramsey goes to Pittsburgh along with Nolan Smith. Pittsburgh, and then the Dolphins bring back their old friend Minkah Fitzpatrick. What was your take on this trade?
You know, the news, it was interesting because it was like it broke in waves. So you got the word that, all right, Jalen Ramsey's going to the Steelers. And I was like, okay, Jalen Ramsey, Steelers, this makes sense. They're going to pick up a lot of contract. They're pushing all their chips in. And then we find out, Minkah Fitzpatrick is actually going to the Dolphins.
Yes. That caught me off guard when I saw that.
I was not expecting that hat to drop. That shoe to drop. That shoe to drop? That hat to drop.
Shoe to drop. The shoe drops, not the hat.
Not the hat.
Yeah.
What would you do with the hat? We'll talk about hats later.
That's true. Hats are on your mind.
But then you find out, Johnny Smith also going from Miami.
From Philly, as you once told me.
That's correct. Yep. So to me, when I'm looking at this, I don't know if the Steelers got better or worse. I think if you were to ask me, which player do I want 3 years from now, 4 years from now, it's probably Minkah Fitzpatrick. Now that said, I don't know that either player, obviously had their best year last year. So this is it's an interesting trade for sure, especially for June 30th.
And what's interesting, too, is I think there were Eagles fans that might have been wondering if they would acquire Jalen Ramsey. I don't think that was ever in the cards. I do wonder, had they known, or if Minkah Fitzpatrick was available earlier this year, if that's someone they might have looked into. Nonetheless, the Eagles will not see the Steelers this year.
No.
And they will not see the Dolphins this year either. So this is not a trade that will be consequential for Eagles fans until if they see one of them in the Super Bowl.
Let me ask you this. So Adam Schefter just tweeted out a little before we went to air talking about TJ Watt. And apparently teams had expressed interest in trading for TJ Watt, and he's still unhappy with his current deal, was not a participant over the course of this offseason with workouts and things like that. Some teams now think that today's trade makes them more likely to trade TJ Watt. Do you think they are more likely or less likely to trade TJ Watt based off of this trade today?
Yeah, I can understand why that speculation comes from a financial perspective, right? You just added Jalen Ramsey. The way I see it, though, practically, is if you signed Aaron Rodgers, acquired DK Metcalf, trade for Jalen Ramsey, even though you give up Minkah Fitzpatrick, sign Darius Slay. This is not like a 4-year plan, right? You're trying to win this year. Aaron Rodgers already went on record saying that this will be most likely be his last season. So TJ Watt's probably the best player on the team. Yeah, if they traded TJ Watt, that would surprise me now.
That would be very, very surprising. But something certainly to watch, especially with a team like Washington in the division that is still starving for that edge rush help. And we know that Adam Peters, Dan Quinn, they've been very aggressive on the pro market. So that could be something to watch, certainly.
It's something we will monitor throughout this summer. We will have shows each day. People say, what do you talk about in June and July? And the answer, of course, is over-unders, right?
And whether it's a hat or a shoe that drops.
This is something that it's a show I always look forward to, because not just does it help you, the viewer, and the listener, if you were to place these bets, but also it's a good way to talk about the types of seasons we might expect from the Eagles from their top statistical performers. So I actually, and we have Brenna here, so we're lucky. Brenna's producing. I told Brenna we're going in the order that I sent them.
Okay.
Should we stick to that and go with the order, or should we jump around player to player?
You literally just told her.
I know
7 minutes ago that we're gonna go to that order.
So I was thinking though, because but then you're doing all Jalen, you're doing all Saquon, you're doing all AJ. Let's stick to the order. I like the order. Yeah,
I like the order too.
Let's stick to the order. Because you know what, you're taught at an early age in your career, early time in your career, always write the quarterback. The quarterback's the lead. Why would we be talking about the quarterback in the B block of the show? You talk about the quarterback in the A block of the show. And so the first one here, the first over-under, and this is from Bet365, is Jalen Hurts passing yards, 3,205 yards. I'm asking you, Fran, over or under?
So contextually, what I tried to do is let me look at the last 3 or 4 years of this player's career just to get a sense of, all right, how often did they hit this number? Last year, in 15 starts, Jalen hit 2,900 yards, just over 2,900 yards. So he missed 2 games, would have needed just 150 yards in both of those games to hit the over on that on his yardage total. In 2023, in 17 starts, he way surpassed that, 3,800 yards passing. 2022, he had 3,700 yards. So again, hit a hard over. In 2021, in 15 starts again, he's only had started 15 games in 3 out of the last 4 years, which is interesting. He came just shy. I was thinking about last year, and obviously, look, it all ended in a Super Bowl trophy. But we have to remember the kind of the arc of Jalen Hurts' season, right? Where they came out throwing the football. They wanted to be a pass-first team. We know that that's how this organization feels, and it was a rocky start to the season. And Jalen Hurts, through the middle section of the season, even as they started to lean into the run game, he just wasn't playing his best ball. He was not playing to the standard, and as he has said, like, the standard is the standard. He was not matching that level of play, and he was on an upward trend as we got to the end of the season. I think you and I are on the same boat that we feel pretty strongly they're going to come out of the gates throwing this year. I think they're going to come out and really try and assert themselves, as a passing team. And I think when you look at Jalen Hurts, if he can come out, and maybe he's not playing quite to the peak that he was in February, but if he plays the way that he was in late December and early January, certainly by the time you got into the middle of the playoffs, he should hit this well. I'm taking the over here.
Yeah, I am. I'm with you there for the reason of I'm expecting him to pass the ball, like you said. I know everyone looks at last year and says, why change what worked? If it's not broken, don't fix it. But I look at it. They don't have Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown. They didn't pay AJ Brown and DeVonta Smith the block, right? And it worked last year. Teams are going to continue to evolve, or I should say defenses will evolve. The other thing, too, is, and we'll get to it, I don't know if Saquon's going to have quite the prolific year that he had last year. I'm expecting the Eagles to pass the ball more. This is really not that high a number, like you said, 3,200 yards. And he exceeded this number in 2022 and in 2023.
Yep.
It would surprise me if he's not over this number. If he's not over this number, I imagine it's more injury related than offense related.
Yeah, or that's a bad sign if he doesn't hit it again. With some of the struggles he had last year, all he would have to do is throw for 150 yards if he is healthy for those 2 games, and he hits that. So I think, yes, I think when you look at this, I feel pretty strongly that this would be a nice over.
Yeah, for context here, 19 quarterbacks in the NFL last year exceeded 3,200 yards. So I would expect Jalen Hurts, even though he was 20th last year, to be more in that top 19 this year. Staying on Jalen Hurts, let's go Jalen Hurts passing touchdowns, 19.5. And I put in here the under is plus 100. So they're actually trying to incentivize you to go under here.
Yeah, I went over here as well on this one. He only threw 18 last year. Again, run-heavy offense, missed a couple games. But he hit 23 in 2023. He hit 22 passing touchdowns back in 2022. So stand to reason maybe he hits 25 to get to 2025. But I think when you're looking at this, again, I just when I look at the way that this team wants to operate now, what gets cloudy here is how much you think that the tush push, what do those rushing touchdowns do to his passing touchdown numbers? We made the point that, like, I think it was Bo that might correct me if I'm wrong. It was either you or Bo when everything was going on with the tush push vote. Said, like, secretly one of the people who's upset that it didn't get outlawed is Jalen Hurts. Like, that he might be like, he might want to prove and say, like, hey, like I'm not just like this tush push cheat sheet. Like I'm also a pretty good player outside of that. So I don't know. I just feel like there might be, if Jalen Hurts, we know, like, he's always looking for that extra motivation. He's won that Super Bowl. He got the Super Bowl MVP. Timed. Top 100. Like all that stuff. I think that this might be the sort of thing that might be able to motivate him. Would be like trying to eclipse some of these kind of metrics here and put himself over the top that way.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I went over. Now it surprised me to see that only 12 quarterbacks last year exceeded this number, 19, or were at around this number here. I would expect Jalen Hurts to throw the ball more. I would expect Jalen Hurts to be in that range, and if he doesn't get over 20 touchdowns, that would certainly surprise me. So I am going over here as well.
What do you got the next one?
The next one here is the rushing yards here. So this is interesting. 600 and I'm sorry. It should be rushing yards. Rushing yards here. There we go. Jalen Hurts rushing yards, 600.5. So does Jalen Hurts become a 600-yard rusher this year? I'm going under.
Yeah, so I wanted to go under, and then I looked at it, and I was like, oh, well, he's done it every year.
Every year
he hit it. And so I'm like, all right, well, even if he does run a little bit less this year, even if I'm projecting that, he starts 16 games, 17 games, I still feel pretty good that he might hit it. So I actually wrote down over, even though my initial gut reaction was under.
Yeah, I initially wrote down over, and then I changed it to under. Just because I didn't want to go over on everything. But also something's going to have to give. If he's passing more, my guess is he's running less. Or having fewer runs. It's really hard to predict rushing stats. The other thing too, and you saw this in 2021. If Jalen gets a lower body injury at some point, then he could return to the field, but maybe run less than he typically does. So to guard myself here, I went under, but I really didn't feel strongly about this. I should also say, everyone watching at home right now or watching at work, chime in the chat. Let us know what you think about all these over-unders. And then if you're watching after the fact, comment below, because I promise you I read every single one of those comments. So let's go with Jalen Hurts rushing touchdowns, 12.5. And this one is probably tush-push related.
Yeah, I mean, he had 14 last year. He had 15 the year before. He had 13 in the Super Bowl run in 2022. He had 10 back in 2021. This was another one where I was like, all right, I'm going back and forth on the over and the under. This one I did go under. This one I went under.
I did too.
Just because I feel like the rushing aspect in terms of like yardage, you could say like, all right, like as a scrambler, QB design, like this little. But I feel like this might be a narrative-driven thing of like, all right, I'm not just tush-push.
Yes.
I'm going to either we're handing the ball off to Saquon here because he's not going to get 2,000 yards rushing, so we're going to try and feed him the ball near the goal line to keep him happy. And also, Jalen's going to try and push this through with his arm and finish these drives off.
I like what you did there, push this through. Yeah, this is more circumstantial than anything else. Like how many times are they going to be stopped at the 1 yard line or inside the 5? And in the past, it's been pretty frequent. If you remember, Saquon Barkley was a guest on Jason Kelsey's podcast. I think it's called New Heights. They might need a little bit of the PHLY boost. So we'll give him that. But yeah, so and Jason's advice to Saquon was don't get stopped at the 1 yard line because then it's just gonna be a tush push, and we've seen that time and time again. I think that if there are more passing touchdowns, obviously, then they're not stopped at the one as often. We'll see what happens with Saquon. We'll see if maybe Saquon gets more of those short yardage carries. I still think the Eagles are going to lean into the tush push. No pun intended there. But I think that just to be safe here, I'm going under on 12.5.
Yeah, I went back and forth when it came to the rushing total. I do think that we're going to see more. Again, this is how they came out last year. They came out wanting to throw the ball, and we saw the volatility there. So if things go awry early on, I think that's when you break glass in case of emergency. They lean into Saquon Barkley in the run game, but I think if they had their druthers, and also honestly, like to keep to maintain the health and longevity for Saquon Barkley, you probably don't want to run him into the ground the way that you did a year ago. I think you're asking for trouble based off recent history with running backs that have carried the load the way that he did a year ago. And so I do think that they're going to want to try and go in and make sure that they're able to conserve him. I think that throwing the football more often in the first half of the season is a way to be able to do that.
Speaking of Saquon and conserving Saquon, this might be the one that is the most polarizing this year among Eagles fans, and that's Saquon Barkley rushing yards, 1,450 yards and 50.5 here, over or under. And the context here, of course, is that Saquon Barkley had 2,005 rushing yards in the regular season last year. So this over/under puts him at, like a 550-yard drop from last season.
Which, if he had run for 1,451 yards last year, that would have been a career high. That was the only time he ever hit this benchmark was last season. And so when I'm looking at this, you say, all right, well, is he going to run for 600 fewer yards than he did a year ago? Like, I don't know if it's 600, but also, like, and you don't want to talk about it, but you have to worry about the I word, injury, the durability, like all that stuff. You do have to worry about that, again, with recent history of running backs that have carried the load that often, and coming back off of that. So I took the over. I don't feel super confident on it. I do think that when you're looking at it, say, all right, well, this is a team. We saw the talent. We know this offensive line's back. This entire ecosystem is back. Even if he doesn't run for 2,000 yards, like, is he going to run for 1,600? Then it's an easy over. I think at this point, as I'm sitting here on June 30th, I'd hit over. I don't know. How do you feel about it?
I went under.
Yeah.
And maybe I don't
blame you for it.
I've been the Debbie Downer when it comes to Saquon this year. Look, history's not kind to people, to running backs who have that type of volume. Yeah. It doesn't mean that he's going, it might not even be volume related. It's just, it's hard to stay healthy 2 years in a row at that position. There's so many factors. Like, if we were talking this time last year, we wouldn't have expected Christian McCaffrey to have the season that he did. It seems, Derrick Henry's really been the only one who's like consistently had those types of years. And even in Saquon's career, the year after the big year, there tends to be a drop off. Now, is it this significant of a drop off? I'm going with under here just because, look, if he misses 5 games, I don't think if he's healthy this year, I got to think he's somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000 yards. But it's just it's hard to predict that type of health. Also, only 3 running backs last year exceeded 1,450 yards. That was Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry, and Bijan Robinson. So around the league, you don't typically see this. And then even when Miles Sanders and DeAndre Swift had those strong seasons under Nick Sirianni, you weren't talking, 1,500 yards. So I am going with the under here.
Yeah, that's what I went back and forth on it. And look, anyone that watched our Spread Your Wins and Fly draft last summer, I am an overly optimistic person. I'm taking a lot of overs here. I took a lot of the overs in that draft back then. I typically want to say, like, oh, yeah, like that'll happen. But I am very open to the possibility that I'm wrong on this. And I do think that ultimately this question is, do you think he's going to be healthy for 16 games, 17 games? Yeah. And if you think he's going to be healthy, this is an easy over and you're going to make your money. And if you think that he could get dinged up and miss a few games, that's when this comes into question.
By the way, I love the fact that you're overly optimistic. Lean into optimism. Choose optimism, not pessimism. You want to be around an optimistic person, right? I like to say if you fixate on the worst case scenario and it actually happens, you lived it twice. Right. So let's go one more Saquon Barkley one before the break, and that is Saquon Barkley rushing touchdowns. So this is 11.5, and this one might not be as like touch related as the rushing yards. So over under 11.5 touchdowns.
And again, last year, if he had run for 12, that would have been the first time in his career that he did it. Now, he only hit 13 last year, but this is a pretty big number that they're still giving him. I am going to take the over here because, again, if I'm taking the under on the Jalen Hurts rushing touchdowns, I think that they're going to swing back the other way somewhere. I'm going to go with the over here for Saquon Barkley, 11.5 touchdown runs.
Absolutely, that was my logic too. I don't think they're going to stop scoring touchdowns on the ground, and if Jalen's not rushing them, it's not as if A.J. Dillon's going to be rushing for 8, 9, 10 touchdowns this year. Maybe I'm wrong. So I am going to go with I'm going with the over. I think Saquon gets in the end zone also. Yep. Shameless plug. There was a piece up on allphly.com during the season when I spoke to Saquon about getting stopped short, and then the tush push comes in and how he dealt with it. He was unfortunate last year in like the amount of times that he just missed the end zone, and then Jalen Hurts comes in. I think he's going to score the touchdowns.
Let me ask you this question. So we talk about the organization knows the thin ice that they're working on with Saquon Barkley coming off this workload. What are some of the things that you think they could realistically do? There's lots of different ways they can do. They can go about trying to take some work off of his plate. What do you think is the most likely path? Like, does it mean more Will Shipley? Does it mean, A.J. Dillon makes the team and is the goal line back? Does it mean, trying to cycle, leaning more into the pass? What do you think are the ways that they can take some of that load off of Saquon?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think leaning in the passing is the quick answer here because if they're going to want to keep A.J. Brown and DeVonta Smith and Jalen Hurts happy. Yep. Kevin Patullo, I think you're going to see more of a vertical offense than you've seen in the past. They couldn't incorporate Shipley or incorporate Dillon, but I think the easy answer here is like manufacture touches for AJ, manufacture touches for DeVonta Smith. Never go into the second half or third quarter of a game with AJ Brown only having only 2 targets. So my guess is passing the ball more than ever.
Yeah, that would be my gut as well, and I do agree with you in terms of the verticality of the offense. I think that it's probably a little bit more reminiscent of what we saw in 2022 than what we saw in 2024, schematically, philosophically here with this pass game.
So does that passing game lead to more yards, touchdowns, catches for A.J. Brown, DeVonta Smith? To find out, stay with us after the break. I mentioned TrueMark Financial at the top of the show, and I want to mention them here too because summer's here. It's been hot out. And the kids are out and about, hanging with friends, maybe even picking up a summer job. It's the perfect time to set those kids up with something that teaches real-world money skills and gives them a little freedom. The Greenlight debit card and money app. If you're a TrueMark Financial member, you can get a free Greenlight account for your kids or teens. It's a simple way for them to manage their own money, whether it's from a job, allowance, or birthday cash. They'll get their own debit card. They can set up savings goals. They can track spending. They can learn how to budget. As I'm reading this, I'm saying I need to read one right now, all while you stay in the loop from your phone. You're still in control, but they get to learn how money really works in everyday life. So before the summer rush kicks in, this is a great way to help your kids build smart money habits that'll stick with them long after the season's over. Head over to TrueMark.com/Greenlight. Get all the details and sign up today. Don't miss the chance to set your kids up for financial success.
Let's sound the alarm because we got a new ad read. We got a new partner. We want to talk about our friends at Branded Bills. And whether you need snapbacks, truckers, fitteds, beanies, or tees, Branded Bills has you covered with performance and style. We're well into the summer at this point. This week, 4th of July. Whether you're out golfing, maybe you go to the beach, maybe you go hiking, maybe you're out doing yard work. I'm a type of person. I have a hat, and I was like, all right, this is my yard work hat.
Oh, interesting.
All right, I'm going to a Phillies game. All right, I got my this is for going out to the Phillies game. If I'm just going to the movies, I'm gonna throw a hat on. Like, all right, this is for that. I've got a bunch of different hats that I use for different occasions. Well, now if I need a hat for one of these new occasions, Brandon Bills has you covered. They've got a great golf selection. You're a Penn State fan, maybe you go to any other college, you go over to their website, go to brandonbills.com. They've got the whole college section. You go right in, and if you're an alum from that school, you're able to make that purchase. And again, all these different types of hats, and it's not just hats. There's T-shirts. There's all kinds of clothes that you can buy there. They've got a partnership with Penn State, like I mentioned, with that campus collection. All you have to do, and we can help you out here, by the way, with this custom headwear. You head over to brandonbills.com, use that code BBPHLY. You get 15% off of your first order. That's our friends over at Branded Bills.
First off, good job with that read, man.
Thank you.
What is your yard hat?
So I've got, it's honestly, it's your travel hat.
Oh, just the black.
Just the black, yeah. Just a very, very basic, generic black hat. I've got, let's see. I've got a Phillies hat that's all right. If I'm going to, even if I'm going to a Sixers game, I've got my old Phillies hat. I've got something for golf. I've got a separate one. That's a all white with a red Temple tee. What's funny is I actually was given a red Temple hat with white letters that's just Temple across. It's too reminiscent to another red hat with white letters. Okay. I can't wear that one. Okay. So if we're going all white hat with the Temple tee, that's the golf hat. So yeah, you gotta mix it up a little bit.
And then speaking of wardrobe, one of the things I always respect about you is you're more adventurous than I am when it comes to colors, right? So as I walked in, or as you walked in today, I was like, I like that shirt. It pops.
Thank you.
It pops. Yeah.
Second time wearing this one. This is a new one.
What are we calling that? Plum? Are we calling that magenta? What's the?
I would say this is probably more of a magenta.
Magenta.
Right?
Okay, I like that. I like that. And we have a super chat here before we get on. This looks to be from Shay. Shay, we always appreciate your contributions.
Whoa, look at the labeling here.
My girlfriend and I are flying tomorrow. I showed her ZBA's PDA couple plane story from Super Bowl week. ZB, are you finally sleeping better in the off season? Shay, thank you first off for the contribution. Second off, good luck on the flight with your girlfriend. And third, I'm sleeping better this off season than I do during the season. That is a goal of mine. And it's not perfect. There have been some Advil PM nights in there, but I can assure you that my Oura Ring is happy with my performance right now. So I woke up. It complimented me on my sleep last night. So hopefully I can keep that rolling. And I
like the Oura Ring?
I love the Oura Ring.
Meg uses the Oura Ring. I'm still on the Apple Watch.
Okay. Do you think the Apple Watch does a good job with sleep?
I don't do the sleep stuff because I feel like I would be overly obsessive with trying to look at it, and then I get my own head about it, and I'm going to be sleeping less. To me, I'm just like, all right, I'm going to go honor system with the sleep. Meg loves it. And,
I don't blame her.
Yeah, she loves the Oura Ring, so she's been all about that for the last couple months.
Yeah, and then you can, like, if you had a big meal and your heart rate was high, or you drank and your heart rate was high.
See, I don't like that stuff.
The more data, the better. That's what I want, right? If I'm a GM, give me more data. Give me more data points.
It was a couple of years ago. I was sitting and working. I was watching. It was a Monday. I'm watching film, and I'm just sitting there.
Flex.
And it was 2 seasons ago, and I was just sitting at my desk, and I was fighting a cold, and I could feel I'm getting sick. And I got a notification on my watch that like your heart rate is abnormally high, and I'm like, what is going on now? So he was just like, oh yeah, like that happens with a virus, like your heart rate will rise. That freaked me out for months on end, and I was becoming obsessive over looking at the heart rate stuff. Now I try not to even look at it. It's that kind of stuff that weirds me out. I like the steps and the activity tracking. That stuff I'm all about with the smart devices.
I'll just say, was it accurate? Were you getting sick?
Oh yeah, I was able to. So it was great. Like I called my doctor. I called in a Z-Pack. I was good a few days, but yeah, the heart rate stuff that affected me for a few months.
That's the benefit right there, right? You always want to know when there's traffic ahead. Now speaking of different data points, let's get the data points on these wide receivers. Starting off with AJ Brown receiving yards, 1,150.5 yards. Fran, over or under?
He came within 100 yards of hitting this last year. He came at 1079. Well over in 2023. Well over in 2022. This is an easy over for me.
I agree.
I think if he's healthy for 15 games, 16 games, A.J. Brown should hit 1150. I feel very confident about that.
Yeah, I was with you here. He was over 1,400 yards the previous 2 seasons. Last year, he was banged up, and the Eagles ran the ball at like a relatively historic rate.
Yep.
It would surprise me if they're not passing the ball more. As long as A.J. Brown stays healthy, this is an easy over.
Honestly, like the pass numbers with Hurts, I was looking, I'm like, all right, like, yeah, I think this is over. Like I'm following gut. I'm following instinct and what I think. It's not congruent with these receiving numbers. And we'll talk about DeVonta's in a bit. But I'm looking at these are like easy overs that are maybe our friends, our listeners, our viewers can take advantage of this while you can. Because to me, these are easy.
So now let's move on to DeVonta Smith. Is this one easy or not? Receiving yards, 850.5 yards, over or under?
Again, he started 13 games last year in a run-heavy offense, and he had 833.
Mm-hmm.
This number is criminally low, like crazy low. 1,066 yards in 2023, nearly 1,200 yards in 2022. He had 916 as a rookie in 2021. 850, like all day, easy over.
Yeah, I'm with you here. I think DeVonta Smith's underrated as it is. I think he's a bit forgotten about because of that year last year. DeVonta is just so reliable, so consistent. It would surprise me if DeVonta is not a 1,000-yard receiver.
Yeah, I mean this is like these are the numbers where you're going in like May, June. You're like, all right, what numbers can I get ahead of if you're looking around the NFL? This is an easy one. Jump on and collect your money in January. This is an easy one.
So receiving yards might be easy. Are receiving touchdowns easier to project here?
Yes.
Let's go A.J. Brown, receiving touchdowns, 7.5 over or under. And I should say the over is plus 100 here.
Yeah, so the over is plus 100. 7.5. This is a tough one. He hit 7 last year. He hit 7 in 2023. Obviously, he was 11 in 2022. That's a huge year. He only had 5 the year before. I think the thing with, and we've had the A.J. Brown discussion this offseason. I think you and Bo both felt like, all right, if I had to bet who's here longer between A.J. Brown and DeVonta Smith, both of you guys said A.J. I still feel it would be DeVonta. I'm still a little bit worried about A.J. long-term, like knee, like, that kind of thing that obviously was a reason why Tennessee moved on. But I mean, 7.5, I do feel like, I mean, he didn't hit it either of the last 2 years. But again, if I feel that we're going to see less Jalen Hurts running and less Saquon Barkley running, I think that we're going to see more throwing, obviously. And I think A.J. Brown is one of the benefactors of that in the end zone.
I'm going with A.J. Brown over here. And I was thinking when you said a show, someone told me over the weekend, you guys talk about A.J. Brown a lot on your show. And I'm like, well, we do 5 shows a day year round, right? He's one of the best players. A.J. Brown over here. Now, the plus 100 incentivizes you to go that way. I would say thank you, Bet365. A.J. Brown can catch deep balls. He can catch short balls. He can catch intermediate balls. He's over Morocco right now. When he gets back and he gets ready for training camp, he'll get ready for over 7.5 touchdowns.
He's over in Morocco, or he's literally over Morocco?
Well, good question. I don't know if he's staying in Morocco or... There was something from Italy to Morocco, Morocco to Italy. So I don't know if he's on his way from Morocco to Italy or on the way to Morocco. He connected in Italy. Perhaps that's what it is. I respect his look. My wife would love him because he's like he records everything on these vacations. He's taking all these photos. I try to get away, don't show me. But he's putting everything on Instagram.
Yeah. So are you not taking pictures at all on your on these vacations? Like just keep them on your phone? I've got a million photos and videos on my phone from last week. I didn't post anything. Yeah, I have some that I keep on my phone. I mainly like Emily and the kids. I don't need to be in photos. I can't. Yeah, I know what I look like. So, DeVonta Smith receiving touchdowns, 6.5 over or under. He's hit the over on even last year. He ran hot on touchdowns last year. Okay, so if you
that was like his saving grace last year.
I mean, if you're looking at his overall usage, he scored more touchdowns than receivers that are targeted as often as he was. Again, he ran hot there, but still. He had 8 last year. He had 7 the year before. He had 7 the year before that. He's hit the over in each of the last 3. We talked about how that usage we should see an uptick there. I'm hitting the over here for DeVonta Smith.
Yeah, I'm with you because look, if I went over for passing touchdowns for Jalen, then I don't think this is going to be like a big uptick in Jahan Dotson touchdowns. I don't think all of a sudden Johnny Wilson is going to have 5 touchdowns. The beneficiaries are going to be AJ, DeVonta, and to an extent Dallas Goedert.
Right.
And DeVonta, I don't want to say despite his size, but at his size, sometimes he's not viewed as like this really good red zone receiver. That's not the case. He's so good at contested catches. He's so good contorting his body. He high points balls. We've seen that time and time again. We saw it with the dagger play in the Super Bowl, what he can do with contested catches in the end zone. So much of it's about contested catches. Give me DeVonta Smith over 6.5.
And again, these are all numbers that you can jump on with our friends at Bet365 right now and take advantage of.
Great job, because that is the end of our Bet365.
Isn't there a Dallas number in there?
Is there a?
I have a Dallas Goedert receiving yards. I think you passed over it on the way to.
My fault. Yes.
It's okay.
Sorry, Brenna. I am hop skipping and jumping here. I got so excited. I think talking about AJ Brown.
But I wanted to make sure we got it in there because this is another one that people can. This is an action.
Yeah. So this is the last Bet365 one, and it's good because we'll get to this before the break here. This is you can go onto your app and bet this Dallas Goedert receiving yards. 575.5.
Okay, so he had just under 500 last year in 10 games, where he had 2 IR stints, and he came within 79 yards of doing that while missing 7 games. I took the over here again. He had 592, so he hit it in 2023 in 14 games. He had 700 yards in 12 games in 2022. He had 830 yards in 15 games in 2021. Obviously, that's without AJ Brown in the fold. So. Yeah, like if Dallas Goedert doesn't have 2 stints on injury reserve, he's hitting the over here. And so you're just betting on health at this point. I think that's another. I feel like I'm Mr. Over again, but I'm taking it here. I'm taking the over.
Yeah, so betting on health with Dallas Goedert's been a tricky proposition.
Sure, yes. Fair.
But the thing is, even when he misses time, like for instance, in 2022, like you said, he plays 12 games, he has 702 receiving yards, right? Ever since he became the top tight ends after Zach Ertz's exit, he's been on pace like for over this total each time. So I'm going slightly over. I don't have the same conviction here, but you can probably see a trend that my overs are passing ones and my unders are rushing ones.
Yeah.
And that's probably where the odds makers at Bet365 and I differ.
Yeah. And we'll get into now the differences between the other numbers we're going to talk about versus these are the actionable items that you could take advantage of now over with Bet365. But we've got some more numbers to hit too.
So should we hit one of these now, or should we get to the break
we'll
as a natural break?
Let's do a natural break.
So if you want to know, for instance, whether Nolan Smith will have over 7.5 sacks, if Quinyon Mitchell will have over 2.5 interceptions, you're going to have to stick around to hear a word from our partners. I want to tell everybody here today about one of my favorite companies, because it's the company that I used to make these over-unders last night, or to research these over-unders last night, and that is Bet365. Why? I mean, we're talking about them during the ad break here. We've been talking about them the whole show, right? It's all been organic. All you need to hear about Bet365 is these over-unders. But you should also know that they have 90 million users worldwide. So any of the 90 million users worldwide can bet these over-unders, and you can join them. Bet365 live streams 780,000 events each year. They have early payout offers across the NBA and NHL, although you don't have to wait for that for a long time here. They pioneered live in-game betting. Bet365 is the place to go for all your local, or for all your baseball bets, but also for all your NFL over-unders. Breaking news from Bet365. New customers now get $150 in bonus bets when you bet $5, win or lose. Sign up, use the code PHLY365. Deposit $10 and place a bet for $5 to get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins or loses. Bonus bets can be used on the spreads, totals, players, props, futures, and more. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 and over and physically located in PA. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
And now we'll hear from our friends at Empire today, because no one does floors better than Empire. And I can tell you, if you have a project like floors and you want to say like, oh, you know what, like I'm going to try this myself. Let's go the DIY route and say like, all right, I'm going to try and take on this project myself. If you mess it up, You try and do it. You have to walk past that mess up for the rest of your life. You don't want to do that. You don't want to have a constant reminder of your failures. You want to make sure you bring in the experts to come and handle it. Because look, that's the other aspect of this too. If you're going to do it yourself, you're going to go to the big box store. You have to pick out all the materials. You got to wander the aisles. You got to deal with people that aren't experts in this field. And then you're bringing all those materials home. You're loading up your car in the heat, in this economy, looking for an installer, coordinating everything yourself. You don't want to do all that. Bring in Empire today because they've got the experts. They know floors better than anybody. They live and breathe flooring, and they will be with you every single step of the way. It's a whole different ballgame. The flooring experts bring the showroom right to your home. So you're not trying to project. You're not trying to guess, oh, what is it? How is this going to match with our walls, with our furniture, with this, with that? You bring it in, they bring it all to you, right to your home. With Empire today, you get clear, upfront, and all-inclusive pricing. Plus, you can schedule installation as soon as the next day because nobody likes to wait. So you schedule that free in-home estimate today because some things are just better at home. PHLY listeners can receive a $350 discount when using the promo code PHLY. Yes, you heard that right. A $350 discount with code PHLY. Restrictions apply. Visit Empire today/PHLY for full details.
You know, I was looking at my phone during the ad read because I was getting these alerts about flash flood warnings, and then I heard the rolling thunder, and ever since the power was out for 3 days last week, I get this just shock through my system, like, oh God, power, please don't go out. Power, please don't go out. So hopefully the power does not go out.
I know a lot of people in our neighborhood. Now, I was gone last week for most of this, but it was like a lot of people like complaining on social media about like, like how long it took like, I don't know, like they're doing their best. They're not leaving you like without. It can be very, very frustrating, but it felt like a lot of complaining last week for the power.
Yeah, it's tough because like when it's 100 degrees.
Yeah, so that's no
right,
question.
and like you I don't want to say you can't be home, but like it becomes
tough to be home.
Yeah, it's tough to be home. So. Yeah, that's tough. But I hear the Rolling Thunder. I was supposed to go to Washington, D.C. tomorrow, just like Shay. I was going to take Reed to the Smithsonian's and the Nationals game.
Nice.
But it looked like there's going to be storms there.
Yeah.
We weren't sure. He's got a fun schedule at camp, so he nixed that. But that's kind of what I'm paying attention to the weather for.
Yeah, it's Francis is at his first day of camp today, so it sounds like they're inside right now.
Nice. So we did the Bet365 I'm sorry, over-unders, but I knew that wasn't going to be sufficient in terms of like talking about this the full show, and I knew there's some other ones I wanted to get into, including receptions and defensive ones, so I didn't know where to turn, and the place to turn was our friend Mike Clay at ESPN. He has statistical projections, so I used his statistical projections for the rest of these over-unders, and we will start with A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown receptions,
yes,
91.5.
So this one was also like easy over for me.
He
had 90. He had 97 last year. He had 158 the year before. He had 140. Like unless no, I was looking at targets on this one. Yeah. 91.5. Sorry. I still feel good about the over here. I think
he's done this once in his career.
Yes.
That was 2023.
Yep.
He had 106 receptions.
Yep.
Other than that, in that great 2022 season, he had 88 receptions.
Right.
I guess this really depends more on how he's used. If he's used in the short and intermediate game a little bit more, and that's what you saw in 2023 when he had all those receptions. Like 2023, he had 13.7 yards per reception. That was the lowest of his career. But he's someone, you look at it his rookie year with Tennessee when he had 52 catches for 1,000+ yards.
Right.
He had 20 yards of reception that year. He had 17 yards reception in 2022. So this really is a bet on usage more than anything else. I went with a slight under here.
Interesting. So I took the over. I still feel good about the over, even though I was just reading the target numbers. I still feel good about the over, mainly, again, I just feel like they're going to be throwing the ball more. And he came just shy of this last year, or he did the year before. To me, I like AJ at the over here.
So now let's go to DeVonta Smith on this too, because this was an interesting one, 88.5.
Yeah.
And for context here, last year DeVonta had 68 catches, but the year before that he had 81 catches, right? So only once in his career, 2022, when he had 95 catches, had he exceeded 88.5.
So last year, leading into the season, you and I both felt that it was going to be a type of season where DeVonta has more catches, AJ has more yards and touchdowns, right? Like, and so I don't know that I'm quite in that same boat, but I still like the fact that they're probably going to be throwing the ball more this year. That said, I think that what we've seen with DeVonta is like DeVonta developing into more of like that big play. You mentioned that dagger play in the Super Bowl, that deep post route. I actually took the under here on DeVonta Smith receptions at 88.5. Again, you can't take the under here. And Mike, by the way, his projections are outstanding.
Yes, I agree.
Stand the test of time. You look back at his projections; they are outstanding year after year. That said, I did like the under here for DeVonta at 88.5.
Yeah, I went slight under here as well. Although I do think he's going to be a high volume receiver. So I guess I'm being hypocritical there, but this is a large number when you look in the context of his career.
Correct.
Now, staying on the topic of receptions, Saquon Barkley.
Yeah.
This one I found a little high on Mike's 48.5. So you know which way I'm leaning. Where are you leaning? Over or under?
Heavy under.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was at 33 last year. And I don't see that. I don't see him getting 15, 16 more catches this year. So he had 57. He hit it in 2022. Exactly. But it's just different offense, different situation. For me, this one would be an under. Yeah,
it would surprise me if in a year when, like, even if the Eagles aren't explicitly saying this, they know they need to manage Saquon's touches. They're like, you know what? We're just going to pass the ball to you more, like 15, 20 more times. That would surprise me. So I thought, last year he was at 33. I still think between that 30 and 40 range. I think 48.5 is high.
Find a way to manufacture touches for Dallas Goedert. Find ways to manufacture touches for the receivers. If you want to get the running back screen game going, that's something that Will Shipley should be able to do very, very well. I don't know that Saquon Barkley would necessarily need to be that guy.
Now, if you're watching at home with a branded Bills hat, a Penn State branded Bills hat, you're going to have an interesting opinion on this one here because this number surprised me when I saw it in the stat projections. Jahan Dotson receiving yards, 116.6.
I mean, heavy over, right?
Heavy over,
heavy over. Because honestly, the aspect of this is even if DeVonta Smith and or AJ Brown are not healthy for a full 17 games, all right, like he should hit this, right? Jahan Dotson should hit this. He had 216 last year, just joining the team the week before the season started. So, this one was easy. This was an easy over.
Now, where do you stand? I don't know if you saw Friday's show. I said, would it be better for the Eagles if DeVonta Smith has a career season or Jahan Dotson has a career season? Rich and I were talking about that. And the context there being like, if Jahan Dotson has a huge year and they have these, or I should say relatively huge year, if he has the best year of his career, so if he's almost like Nelson Aguilar was in 2017, and you have three reliable, dependable receivers, it changes the offense.
Yeah.
But if DeVonta takes this up a step and DeVonta's at, 1,400 yards and he shows that he's a bona fide number one receiver, it might, that has its effects too. So which one's better for the offense?
Can I ask you this though? Yep. Does it come at the expense of somebody else not having a career? Like, is it like, all right, like Jahan Dotson has a career year, but DeVonta Smith only has 400 yards receiving?
No. So that's a good question. No. So it's probably like you're getting the average production from AJ and DeVonta, but then you have this big uptick from Jahan, or you have the average production from AJ and Jahan, or you have this big uptick from DeVonta.
I'd rather have the uptick from DeVonta personally.
Interesting.
Just because I think number one, you've already paid him his money. Yep. He's a guy that you view as a centerpiece moving forward. I think it's more important for you to hit there than, you traded for Jahan Dotson, but at the end of the day, like, it's a third-round pick that you got a fifth-round pick back for. Like, it's not a huge investment. If he hits, great. Then maybe like either you're going to re-sign him and move on. It gives you more faith to move on from DeVonta or AJ in a couple of years, and then you can plug him in, or maybe you get a comp pick back for him if you let him leave. But I think it's better to have DeVonta be able to hit.
Are you Davis Covey 6515? Because Davis Covey 6515 left a similar comment on the YouTube page, because I read all the comments. Okay. I thank him for watching, and it's debates like that which make this fun. So if you
I'm not Davis Covey.
I know. if you agree or disagree, comment when you watch the show. Leave it in the chat now. Let's get some more super chats going as well. So now let's roll over to, hold on, I got to pull the sheet up here. Let's roll over to the defense. These were fun. Nolan Smith sacks 7.5. 6.5.
This was a tough one, man. This was honestly, like, on the list, this was the one that I most waffled back and forth on, where it was like, oh, like I could see it going either way. I am a big Nolan Smith guy, as we discussed on the show a couple weeks ago. I was huge on his pre-draft projection. I was very optimistic still coming into last year about what he could be, and said, like, don't give up on him yet. I took the over. He had 6.5 last year. Am I expecting that he's going to have double-digit sacks? I don't know if that's necessarily like on the horizon this year, but look, I mean, this is a team that you're going to get some of that pass rush production back from somewhere, right? Like, so you lose Milton Williams, you lose Josh Sweat. Somebody's going to step up and be able to get to the quarterback. I think Nolan Smith will have a heavy hand in that.
Yeah, Nolan Smith had 4 sacks in the playoffs last year.
Yeah.
He finished the season with 3 sacks in his last 5 games, with 4 sacks in his last 6 games. So if you just factor in, he had 8 sacks during a 9-game stretch there. He has the ability to get hot. He's their top edge rusher going into this season. I'm going with the over here. Maybe that's a little too optimistic. And if it's it could be that the sack numbers are coming from other players, and we'll get into that. But yeah, I got to think someone on the edge is going to push toward double digits, and I'm going with Nolan Smith as the guy I'm expecting to do it. On the topic of Nolan Smith, Brenna's here in studio.
Shout out to Brenna.
Awesome job on the Exciting Mike's Nolan Smith show. I listened to it on audio, then I watched it back on video, and I've seen the clips. Nolan Smith talks about his goals for the 2025 season. You can check that out on wherever you get your shows and on our YouTube channel as well.
No question.
So now let's stay with the edge rushers. Jalyx Hunt sacks 4.5 for Jalyx Hunt.
I wrote down over. I don't feel like super strong about it.
Yeah.
He had 1.5 last year. Obviously, you expect that he's going to have more than that. The Eagles hope that he has more than that. It feels like he's probably coming into the season as the favorite to be the starter opposite Nolan Smith. I do think it's a pretty big projection still, just considering the developmental curve. I think in an ideal world, he's your 3rd guy, and there's somebody else that's starting ahead of him. I think that's the ideal world for Jalyx Hunt still at this point in his development. But if he's the starter, then I feel like good on the 4.5. This is just a bet on if you think that he's going to be a starter or not.
Yeah.
Where did you land?
I went with the under.
Yeah.
I actually wrote over, but I
know that's why I went back and forth there, man.
Yeah, it's just I just need to see the proof of concept a little bit more here. I know the playing time is going to be there. I'm bullish on the player and the upside, but I'm going with a slight under here.
Yeah, I honestly was very close to doing what you did, and because I had overwritten down, I was I'm just gonna go under. It's just to me, like, we'll get into a couple of the other ones. I think that those, again, the sacks are going to come from somewhere. Are all of them going to come from Jalyx Hunt? Like, to me, one element of the Nolan Smith the discussion I think is interesting is that he is the guy, like, in that room now, right? And I think there is something to be said for, hey, like, you're going in, like, a year ago, his expectations were super, super low compared to where they were or where they are now. Some guys take on that added responsibility, and it motivates them further. My sense is that is Nolan. Like, Nolan is one of those type of guys, but some guys don't handle that well. And so I think that is certainly something to follow here in the coming weeks and months.
And this Thunder is playing a part in the show.
Yeah.
Yes, it's gonna be a fun ride home. I'm curious to see with Jalyx Hunt on 3rd downs in particular. Are you expecting him to be a heavy 3rd down player?
I think so. I think that's when you're really, to me, like, it would be a disappointment if he's not a part of that package. Even if he's not the quote unquote starter, if Azeez Ojulari is the starter or whoever is the starter, it would be a surprise and a disappointment for me if Jalyx Hunt's not out there on pass downs.
I've just wondered if at some point they're going to mix Jahan Campbell more on the edge on those passing downs.
Yep.
And so then let's go with Jalen Carter. This is an interesting one.
Yeah.
Jalen Carter sacks 5.5.
Yeah.
Over or under?
He had 4.5 last year. He had 6 as a rookie in 2023. I felt most comfortable on this one of the 3 defensive ones we've talked about and the 5 that we're going to do. This is the over that I was like, yes, I feel very strong. Like, he's going to surpass that 5.5 mark. I think when you look at Jalen Carter, and again, going back to last year, we had super high expectations. Like, this is a guy that we think has defensive player of the year type of upside.
Absolutely.
Like, he has that kind of talent. And while he was really, really good, he was not that tier of player for the first half of the season. First 2/3, he was really good. He was awesome. Not that kind of like game wrecker, consistent week after week, like that kind of guy. I think that he played like that guy down the stretch. You know, even though he didn't have the huge numbers in the Super Bowl, he was the best player up front for them in the Super Bowl. You know, when I look at Jalen Carter, I anticipate that he's going to surpass 5.5 this year.
Yeah, I'm going over here too. I think this is, you know, he had 6 sacks as a rookie, like you said. He got double teamed a lot last year. I know sacks can be fickle for defensive tackles, but this is the Jalen Carter breakout year. Now, you might have said the breakout already happened. I think this is the statistical breakout year. I think this is Fletcher Cox's, you know, double. This is when Fletcher Cox announced himself as like an elite defensive tackle. I'm expecting that from Jalen Carter. I'm buying my Jalen Carter stock, and that includes over 5.5 sacks.
It was the Super Bowl era draft, the Super Bowl team draft from a couple of weeks ago. He said like 2017 Fletcher Cox was a great player. 2018 Fletcher Cox was like, you know, I feel like you might see that kind of thing with Jalen Carter.
Good point. This is our first show, by the way, since the NFL draft, since the full team draft. People love the Fran team.
So do I. I agree with them.
Yeah.
How did Davis Covey feel about that one?
I don't know if Davis Covey left a comment on that one. Probably because Jahan Dotson wasn't picked.
Right, yeah.
So now let's look at Quinyon Mitchell, another guest of the Exciting Mics. Quinyon Mitchell, 2.5 over or under.
You know, like, see, these are tough because interception, like, everyone talks about defense being very volatile year to year, right? In terms of like quality of defense, and especially when it comes to coverage. You know, I mentioned a couple weeks ago, last time you and I did a show together, this is the time of year when I'm doing a lot of my like big picture, philosophical, like things that matter to me most in every position as I'm watching college players in preparation for the upcoming season. And everybody just, I think, like talks about defensive coverage as, again, it's very volatile. Like season to season, it changes. James Bradbury's an All-Pro in 1 year, and then he's on the bench and then the next year. That's obviously a very extreme example. I do think that coverage production is very volatile. Last year, Quinyon Mitchell had 0 interceptions in the regular season. Is he going to have 3 this year? Not playing opposite Darius Slay, you would say, like, all right, the teams are going to view him, Quinyon, as the number 1 corner. Would you stay away from his side and go more towards Keely Ringo, whoever the starter is, Adoree Jackson, on the opposite side? Logic would point you to that. I'm going to take the under.
Yeah.
I don't think that it speaks. I love Quinyon. I think Quinyon's a great player. But to say he's going to go from 0 to 3, I don't necessarily feel super confident in that. But that said, I do think that he's a really good player.
Yeah, the joke last year in the locker room was about Quinyon's hands or ball skills, however you want to frame it. And like you said, terrific cover corner. There's not much evidence that he's a ball hawking corner. Even you go back to college, he had 1 terrific game where he had 4 interceptions.
Right.
Outside of that, he only had 2 interceptions the rest of his college career.
Yep.
So he's not like, you know, C.J. Gardner-Johnson. You see the track record of interceptions. You don't necessarily see that with Quinyon. Now, he finally got on the board in the postseason, but again, interceptions are volatile. We all recall those Kirk Coleman years and things like that.
Wow.
But
Kirk Coleman catching shade at the 57th minute of the podcast.
I'd like Kirk Coleman, but I am not expecting a big interception season from Quinyon Mitchell.
Yeah, it's tough because, again, like, a couple tip balls here and there, like, you know, not to have the Jahdae Barron debate again, but like Jahdae Barron had like 2 interceptions in his first 4 years at Texas, and then had 7 and won the Thorpe Award last year because Carson Beck threw him 3 right into his chest. Like, you know, those kinds of things can happen when you play that position. Speaking
of Carson Beck, you should just wait around like 2 more minutes when there will be a little bit of a Carson Beck conversation, just a tease. But how well timed is this show, because we are on right now the final one here at the 2:58 mark, and that is Cooper DeJean, 1.5 interceptions for Cooper DeJean, over or under?
I'm taking the over on this one.
Me too.
Yeah, I'm taking the over here. I think that when you're playing inside, You get a little bit more action in terms of there's more opportunities for Cooper DeJean to be around the football in this area of the field, in this defense. Obviously, look, he had no interceptions during the regular season last year. We all know about the pick 6 in the Super Bowl. I do think that he gets 2 picks this year. So let's go with Cooper DeJean on the over.
Yeah, Cooper DeJean's going to be playing more this year. He's healthy going in to the season, unless there's an offseason injury or a microphone injury doing exciting mics. And I just think the way he plays, he's going to be around the ball. I'm expecting Cooper DeJean to go over 1.5 here.
What if I made it 2.5?
What's that?
What if I made it Quinyon's 2.5?
Let's go.
Is that one going to scare you away?
No, I'm going with 4 interceptions this year for Cooper DeJean, and maybe a Pro Bowl visit.
Oh, yeah. See that?
And we can discuss that and maybe quarterbacks in this draft in overtime. So you once spent a lot of time grinding Cooper DeJean film during the summer. And now here you are, and you're a great father, great husband. You go on a family vacation. Your first day back, I got a text this morning. I got a story on the quarterbacks, the draft quarterbacks. And I'm like, this is why Fran's the best draft analyst in the business, right? So, look, everyone.
We're second best.
Everyone go to allphly.com, become a diehard, and you can read it there. But give them a little tease here. What can they expect on that piece and on PHLY.com?
Yeah, I'm hoping to do some similar types of things for different positions around the game. I've done, I think, 10 of the biggest name quarterbacks. So it's like, all right, I don't know that there's going to be the 10 that I will call my top 10 quarterbacks by the time we get to November. But these are the 10 quarterbacks that most people have in mock drafts and are kind of grading in that way. So I'll show you how I stack them. And so I went through all 10. I've gone through a lot of film on all of them, and it was a fun exercise. Like I said, I'm hoping to do top 10 pass catchers between the receivers and tight ends, top 10 offensive linemen, defensive linemen, DBs. So look for those in the coming weeks. I did have this article ready before I went on vacation, so don't think that I was working on it as I was in between nights at the park.
I lost a little bit of respect. No, I'm kidding. No, it seems like Mendoza from Indiana is the quarterback that you might be lower on relative to consensus. And
Klubnik would be the big
Klubnik,
one.
Yeah.
Some people are
really high. I saw one mock draft with him number 1 today.
That's
and
rich.
Then also it seems like you might get an invite to the Manning Passing Academy next summer, which seems pretty awesome. Thibodeau, Louisiana.
I would accept that one.
I've been reading good clips out of that. So make sure you check that out on allphly.com. Make sure that you rate, comment, review, subscribe. Leave their comments on Apple Podcasts, on the Spotify episodes. I'm reading them all, looking for feedback. And we have a chance to do it better tomorrow. Not with Fran. I will be on tomorrow with either Jamie or Rich. I'll let you know in an early tweet tomorrow morning. But Fran and I will be back on Wednesday.
Yep. Until
then, thank you to Fran. Thank you to Brenna, of course. Outstanding job. An outstanding job this weekend on our Flyers coverage. That's important to mention. Crushed it. The Flyers and the Sixers crew. Drafts, I would say draft seasons are the best times here at PHLY. And if Bo was here, he would agree with that. And he would say, as always, we love you. I'll say we'll do better tomorrow. Thanks for watching.
We all silly like the mayor.